Hey, Dean.
Hey, Lisa, what?
So, we had this awesome talk with Marci Liroff about sex on screen, intimacy coordination, but you actually did a lot of due diligence about even just the acceptability of any kind of
I'm a details guy, you know that.
Oh, yes. Yes, you are. And I am not, as you know.
Yeah,
I just fly by the seat of my, whatever
Freeform.
it is.
You play jazz, I read music.
That's right. But I don't want all of that research to go to waste. So, hit us with it. Tell us what you found out, because it certainly surprised me.
And it did me too, because I sort of went back to look at the Hays Code, which I knew existed. So back in the 30s, sort of restrictions came in on the kinds of things you could and couldn't say in film. But I was surprised to learn that prior to that, so when film first started, but before it got, quote, regulated, Hollywood could actually get away with a whole lot of stuff that they couldn't do for decades afterwards. So what happened was that prior to the 1930s, women could be portrayed in film and were as sexually active, strong characters. Marlene Dietrich, for example, quite daring. Abortion and other real-life topics were all covered. But as the public were pressuring the government to intervene, and, it was the time of the 30s, prohibition and all that sort of thing. And so they were saying, this lewd content has to be regulated. So the industry decided to self-regulate before the government did. And in 1915, the film industry had gone to the Supreme Court for the right to, show what they wanted under the First Amendment, your American First Amendment of free speech. And the Supreme Court ruled that it was like entertainment or business or something, and as such was not protected under the First Amendment. So William Hays was the guy who was the first head of enforcement of the sort of group that the studios put together. So it became known as the Hays Code, even though he didn't draw it up. And this was sort of created by the Motion Picture Producers and Distributors of America, which is
Blah,
today
blah, blah.
yeah, whatever. Anyway, so nudity and swearing and drugs were prohibited. Crime and immorality could never be portrayed in a positive light. So if you had a character who was, a bit naughty, they had to get retribution before the end of the film.
Sure.
Yeah,
sure.
it was like a backlash against the Gilded Age or something. And it did things like it finished Mae West's career, Lisa, right? Because Mae West was this, very positive, strong, sexy woman, built her career on innuendo and double entendre, and they were all actually banned under the Hays Code. So what could she do? So that was really the end of her career, which was terrible because, God, was she a great individual, an amazing woman.
Great character.
Anyway, look, it held forth through the sort of 40s, 50s, then into the 60s as things started to loosen up. And what happened was there was a couple of movies that came out. Antonioni's Blow Up, for example, it didn't get Hays' approval, and MGM said, you know what, we're just going to release it anyway. And it stormed the box office, and the other studios, like when the first one, it's like kids, the first one does something and then all the rest follow.
That's right. It's it's a pent-up, need for it.
That's exactly what it was, right?
Yeah.
And so the studios wanted to do it, and what they realized after the success of Blow Up was, wait a minute, the public want it too. So, of course, the customer's always right. Right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, and at the same time there in the late 60s, you also had the beginning of, that new wave of Hollywood, right? You had the end of the studio power and you got the beginning of the auteurs.
Like Easy Rider.
Yeah, Easy Rider, Raging Bulls, right? And Peter Biskin's The End of Hollywood. It was the rise of those directors. It was Spielberg. It was Lucas.
Their material is not at all scandalous. I mean, it really wasn't, yeah.
No, it wasn't. But for guys like Coppola and Scorsese, it tipped the balance of power away from the studios. They realised that the guys that made the film, because they were making the films that people that saw, right? Mm-hmm. So these were the popular films, and the studio, this ways of producing film within the studio was no longer as successful. They had to cede power to these enfants terribles, right? These kids that were coming up and making films that were way better than the studios could make. And so there was that sort of, they had to give up that power as well because it was just the natural way. And so that was sort of the end of it. And so then what happened was Jack Valenti came in as the head of the MPAA, and he said, you know what, we're going to throw the Hays Code away and we're going to bring in this system of ratings. And that's how we got the rating system that we do today.
Which is its own kettle of fish and worms. But I just remember back in the day that Claudette Colbert scene with Clark Gable. It happened one night where she sort of rips her dress and shows her leg when she's hitchhiking. That at the time I think was like, oh my goodness, grasp my pearls. Oh my goodness, that's so horrific. But in reality, even before then, people wanted to see real sex. They wanted to see people in flagrante or whatever you call it. Whatever it is.
In flagrante delicto.
Nice, thank you very much. That's why you're smart and I'm just crazy blonde here. But you know what? Something you said, maybe, this backlash against Mae West is very interesting. Or you said something else about, like, it could have this in the scene, but then they had to get their recompense or something. And I think that carried on into the horror genre, where if a girl is, like, getting it on and is sexual in any way, she's the first to get her face chopped off or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
She's got to pay the price for that.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely a staple of the horror thing, right? There's all the kids at the lake, and the first ones to have sex are the first ones to be killed, and the next ones to, so that's you're
so
right. That's
sick. I mean, that's really worse than and of course, nobody cares about violence, right? You could have people eviscerating themselves, but oh my God, you show a tit, oh my God, that's just the end of humanity. But anyway. Hey, you guys, if you're enjoying this podcast, please go over and give us a positive 6-star review wherever you listen to your podcasts. Plus, if you know someone who would like the show, please send them a link. Sharing is caring. And now back to the show.
Oh, well, one thing we didn't cover was just the total inequity of, how many actresses, like serious Oscar-winning actresses out there, have done full frontal nudity, and yet Hollywood is happy with tits and ass and bush even, but penises, no. It's like,
that is changing. I mean, I have to say that it is changing. I don't know if this is the Me Too movement. The boys are like, me too. But but I just saw this movie. I think I told you I saw Midsummer the other night, which is a horror genre film, but I think it's much more than that. And it stars Florence Pugh and Jack Reynor. And Jack Reynor said, I'm going to go for it. He said it makes him so vulnerable, where he's got to be running around full frontal, full backle, full everything. You see it all. And he says because it made him feel so vulnerable. And in the scene, that's what it needed to be. So I think things are changing. God bless Harvey Keitel, who in the piano, the Keitel was everywhere. And God bless him because,
he doesn't mind getting it out. He did that in Bad Lieutenant as well.
Oh, did he? I never saw that.
Yeah. Several years ago, I did a course here in Melbourne with a local filmmaker, and she was well known for this documentary she did. It was about naked and being naked. So she interviewed, I want to say like a model, someone glamorous and pretty with, fantastic body and all that. And then she interviewed somebody else, and she interviewed a disabled guy. And so over the course of the days of the shooting, she's there with her crew and whatever, and she noticed he started to shut down. And she said, okay, stop. She goes, what's the problem? And he said, look, I don't mind talking about this, but he said, it's not even. And she's like, oh, shit, yeah, of course. So she went, right, okay, I've got to get naked too, even if she's not on camera. It was just an imbalance. And
imbalance of power, which is exactly what Marci was saying.
What we've been talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah, so once she did that, she said it was uncomfortable for me, and then I realised, well, I'm not even on film, and I'm uncomfortable, and so then he opened right up again, and she said we got the best stuff after that, so... Yeah.
I do think it's very important that there's representation of not perfect bodies in sex scenes, in cinema, TV, whatever it is. I think that's important. And I applaud, older actresses who are very vulnerable when they're older and not as, things aren't where they were when they were younger, and they go for it. Yeah, and they go for these nude scenes because it's the truth. It's what we are.
I think that your idea of enforcing on us that we record that pod naked was a bold move. And
Brian was a little shy about it. I was surprised.
It's like, well, so come on, he's a Texas Longhorn, right? Come on.
Yes, Longhorn indeed. Oh my goodness, you're so funny. But I'm really glad that we got to get all of your immense research out in this little addendum.
Yes, all 2 minutes of it. Everything that I cobbled together from Wikipedia and a couple of other articles. But it was interesting. And to your point, I have seen a documentary that was like, the old staggering black and white, no sound, kind of film. And there's a whole range of porn in there. Like there's, they were into it big time. You know,
Oh,
just
yeah.
I guess they could play it in their, you know, in their rich people's houses up against the wall or a screen or something like that, and that was part of it. You know,
Yep.
they'd have like normal films of, you know, trains and people and whatever, and then they go, oh, and by the
Right,
way, we've got
right.
this one. Hey guys,
Right. Well, I
get
think
another
one of-
glass of brandy.
Right. Well, I think one of the
porn.
first films is called The Kiss, right? So hey, as long as it's consenting adults, real adults who are really consenting and not being coercively controlled into these situations, as has happened. But you know, we've got these fierce gladiator intimacy coordinators who are going to fight the good fight and make sure everybody's safe and everybody's comfortable. And I'm very proud that Marci's doing this.
It's a good thing. All right, great. Well,
All right.
we hope you've enjoyed this little sidebar, and we'll don't forget to subscribe if you're watching this on YouTube or wherever you're at. Go to your podcasting app of choice, Killer Casting. You'll find us on the socials as well. And if you go to killercastingpod.com and click on the contact page, there's a little button there for SpeakPipe, and if you just click on that, you can record a message, and it instantly comes to me, and we will drop it in the pod. Unless it's abusive or you're bagging us, and in which case it'll just disappear. You'll never hear from it again.
Oh,
Right,
I want to hear it all. And speak pipe. That sounds so dirty. Speak pipe. Speak pipe. Ooh, I want to
What has
run
this episode done to you?
want to run my tongue over the speak pipe. Okay. Anyway,
goodness
woo,
me.
baby.
Woo!
All right.
Lordy. Okay. All right. Thanks,
All
folks.
right.
We'll catch you next time. Bye.
Killer Casting is a concept created and produced by me, Lisa Zambetti, with audio engineering by Dean Laffin, logo art by the lovely April Laffin, website and big old fat opinions courtesy of Ryan Allen Hill.